Mic check 1 2 1 2. I am the Y2K Collector, and welcome to the Sega Nostalgia series. And this is where I'll be going over the Sega games that really impacted me as a child. And these are some recent pickups. So this is kind of like a combo of Sega pickups / nostalgia. And these are just the games that I'm picking up because, again, they remind me of good times as a kid. And so I've never been one to try and complete, a collection for any console. Like, I've never tried to get all of the Sega games, nor have I ever tried to get all the Nintendo games for or any console. But my motto has always been get the games that mean something to you. And so today we're going to be looking at two games that really impacted me. The first being the classic Altered Beast on the Sega Genesis. And then we also have another monumental classic, Ghouls N Ghosts. And these were two amazing games that I just thought were just, out of this world as a kid. And I just want to go over them. So just starting with Altered Beast, I remember back when I was 5 and my brother had recently gotten a Sega Genesis, and he knew that I would try to play it as a kid. So he would always leave it on this high shelf in the closet, and he would store all of his games back there. And so back then, that was when he had, I think trading was a little bit better back then, and he had an NES, and he wound up going in and trading in his NES, and he came back with the Sega Genesis. And so I remember just Altered Beast being like this, this kind of like a, action, side-scrolling game. And you get these little orbs that give you these power-ups, and you just keep on, your guy just keeps on getting more and more muscular until boom, he either transforms into a wolf or a dragon or a bear. And I thought that was just so sick. And the thing that kind of sticks out to me is some of the bosses, especially that first boss. That first boss used to just give me nightmares, man. I mean, just crazy, how the game starts off. But Altered Beast is one of those, flagship Sega Genesis games. It came out in '89 and really just took, I think, Sega to a whole new level. The music in the game is amazing, especially at the game over screen. It goes into this whole like hip hop 90s kind of game over music. And then overall, just all of the sound effects are just great, from the power ups, to the little cutscenes in between each level. I mean, Altered Beast was a classic, and if you've never had a chance to play this game, I definitely recommend it. It was one that I picked up in a lot. I want to say end of summer, early fall. I happened to pick up 2 Sega Genesis lots with games that came complete in box, and all of these games came in really, really good condition. I mean, they all had their manuals, they had the inserts, the posters, and everything like that. So I was really glad when I was able to get my hands on Altered Beast, because this is a classic. And if you're into Sega and you haven't played this game, I definitely want to recommend it to you. All right, moving over now to another classic that came out in 1989, Ghouls N Ghosts. Ghouls N Ghosts is another classic that came out in 1989, and it really just took the video game world by storm. I mean, Ghouls N Ghosts, it came out in '89 on the Sega Genesis. I think it had been out on the Master System and other systems, but just this version of Ghouls N Ghosts is the one that I remember, right? Because I wasn't familiar with the Master System as a kid, and I hadn't really heard of Ghouls N Ghosts on any other consoles. But when my brother brought this game home, back in the 90s. I think he got this back either in 1990 or 91. And I remember when he came home with it, I remember night after night him just getting frustrated trying to beat this game because it was just so hard. And I remember he would even let me take a stab at it from time to time, and I would barely make it past 10 seconds before I got killed. I mean, I was never able to get the golden armor and do the power-ups, but eventually he got good at it. He kept on playing and playing until he wound up beating the game. But this is one of those games that's all about timing, repetition, and really just knowing the levels, knowing the courses, knowing how to get around the enemies. And the more you play Ghouls N Ghosts, it's really one of those games that the more you play it, the better you get at it. I think this was really an arcade game, and so that kind of tells you a lot about its difficulty. Arcade games were usually harder, and that was so that you could spend more money and put more quarters in the machine. And so Ghouls N Ghosts will definitely be one of those games that will make you throw the controller at the TV screen, and want to break everything around you. And I just remember being a kid back in the day and just seeing my brother go through that. And every time I see these two games, my mind just goes back again to the early 90s and everything else that was happening at that time. We were playing Altered Beast. We were watching Charles in Charge and Saved by the Bell. We were listening to, what were we listening to back then? I think we were listening to a little bit of Biggie back then, you know, so these video games just kind of take me back to those times after school, you know, the Disney afternoon, you know, all of the different cartoons and things that we watched back at that time. And I think these two games, whenever I see them on a shelf in a store, that's exactly where they take me back to. And so these are two Sega classics that I've recently picked up, and I highly recommend you checking these out. Well, thanks for stopping by and tuning in for this week's episode of the Sega Nostalgia series. And let me know what you think about these two games. Where were you back in 89 or back in 1990 when these dropped? Were you playing these games or did you get to them later? Let me know down in the comments. And thanks for stopping by. I am the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.